Am I on? Thanks. Alyssa told me that some kids are going down and some kids are staying up. I don't remember which is which. Alyssa, where are you? Kindergarten and under, you're invited downstairs. Which is one of the reasons that I stand here before you today. Wow, what a privilege to worship with you. I'm going to start with Scripture. One of my favorites, Psalm 103. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Can't do this. Can't crack up now. Okay. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. The Lord gives us an invitation to remember. And you'll forgive me if I don't give a typical sermon, not that I give typical sermons. This morning, it's not so typical. I wanted to have a time of remembering. The Lord invites us to do this. And first and foremost, the remembering is not about me, and it's not even about you. It's not about the things that Christ Church has done. It's about the things that the Lord has allowed us to participate in with him. It is all about him. For those of you who do not know, today is my last preach. At least as a licensed full-time, or I've been part-time now, pastor, this is it. I go into full retirement as of noon. I do so with mixed emotions. I've only known this congregation all of the years that I've been preaching and ministering. It's 39 years. This is the only one. If you don't know, this week, by the grace of God, Kelly and I will head south to Mobile, Alabama, where a boat is waiting for us that we've been diligently laboring on for the last couple of years. We bought it up here in Inver Grove Heights. It was in the river. It was a junker condemned and doomed to death. It was a bank repossession. It was full of mold, and it was horrible. The price was right. It's been refitted and reworked, and it's been renamed Dry Bones. Dry Bones after Ezekiel 37, Ezekiel's vision over the valley of dry bones. And God comes to Ezekiel and he asks him, can these bones live again? And that was certainly true of this boat. Can these bones live again? But far beyond that, the metaphor is for life, our lives. The question is can these bones live again? And they can. In Christ. He fixes us up. The full of mold clunkers, the junkers, the condemned for the boneyard, he redeems. To his uses, for eternal purposes forever. So we're going to be on dry bones for a while. And we're hoping by the grace of God and with his blessing to spend our winters out of Minnesota. Darn. and our summers back here with our beloved children and grandchildren, and with you. So we'll go back and forth, and we're taking a lesson from the Nissens, and they seem to have done that quite successfully over the years, back and forth. And so I don't golf, so we've got to scuba dive, I'm afraid, in its place. I came here when I was 28 years old by really a prompting I felt of the Lord. I had a good job in my career path. I was working in Chicago at a methadone clinic, handing out methadone to heroin addicts. That was my job. That was my future. I'd already been working in the chemical dependency field and the counseling field for a few years. But I felt the Lord said that he wanted me to come and just to be with and support a friend of mine, Jim Munson, whom many of you know, who began this work. And the Lord just called me and said, you know, you are his friend. Go stand with him and be with him, help him and serve him. I had the privilege of many, many years coming up here and serving my good friend. I had no intention of becoming a pastor. I had no aspirations of being a pastor. I had no desire to be a pastor. Had no clue. But within that first year, when I was a young guy of 28 years old, of coming up here, I not only was asked by the elders of the church that he'd started, it was a precursor to this church, I was asked to come on staff and be a help there and be available with my time, and I was licensed into the ministry at that age. But even more significantly, I met my partner for life, and I became a father and a husband and a pastor all in one very unexpected year. Just because, and all these years of blessing, so that's 39 years of marriage now, coming up on 39. All these years of blessing and family because I obeyed the prompting of God in the small things, which was just to move and support a friend, and look what's added. I'll tell you this, of all the things I wanted to be when I was a young man, an adventurer, a forest ranger, to live up in the mountains, to be a mountain man, to play with the bears, to do all that, of all of those dreams that I had, if I would have achieved every single one of the dreams that I had as a young man, if I would have achieved them, I would have achieved so much less than what I've had through Christ. Through following him and giving my life, my service to him over these years, I've seen far more adventure. I've done far more places and had more the depth and exciting, hair-raising, dangerous, wonderful adventures than I ever could have known if I had been limited to my dreams. God has bigger things for us than we know when we surrender our lives to him. So this may be my last official sermon, but I suspect it won't be my last time before you. It's like the Eagles' farewell tour. I think the first one was in 2005. And they've been having a farewell tour just about every year since then. And I'm not ashamed to say my wife and I have tickets for the Eagles concert in Minneapolis in 2021. If God can possibly bless that. But we're going. So I'm hoping the preaching will be more in that flavor. As you know, we started this church, Jim and I and many of you started this church in 1985. Started at Garden View Elementary School over in Apple Valley, and quickly grew to the place where our children were not comfortable meeting in the hallways any longer. We had no space for them. We were compelled. We could not find a place to rent. We were compelled to ask the Lord for a building. And so this building came about. We first secured the land. This was a horse pasture when we came. There, and 6.5 acres. It was all open. There was a small private airport across the street where the school is now, Doyle International, and the sign actually said UFOs welcome. So we knew we were in the right neighborhood. We bought the 6.5 acres initially for $90,000. And it took a while, a couple of years, to pay that off and to raise some money and to become credible to a bank to be able to put this place up. And so the building actually was started in 1989, and we moved in 1990. And here we are, blessed after all these years. It's not about a place. It's God gave us a tool for these many years, for the things that He has done in this community and beyond and into the world. I remember when we first put a prophetic word, a shovel into the ground out here. Some of you were there. And we put a shovel in the ground and threw the dirt in the air, and the prophetic word over us was this, is that the Lord would never want us to be contained within these walls, that we are always to operate. His church was to be a church outside of the walls. And so it has been all these years. This has been a church outside the walls that has reached by His grace the nations. And we're so blessed to be part of it. Please, so join me in, I'm going to just do some rambling memories. Is that okay with you today? 38 years of memories. There's no way I could do them all. But I'm just going to hit some of the positive things. Of course, they'd all be positive, except for one thing, is that the church is made of people. So I'm going to stick just with the positive ones over the years. You know, and feel free to give an amen or raise a hand if you were there or part of that. Remember the early days of youth group. Yeah. Remember just one thing. Dan Shenander, you've heard this lately. Dan Shenander, as youth leaders, and Kelly and I were youth leaders for a while because we just wanted to serve the Lord wherever we were needed. So we were ministering with the youth group. It's back in the days, you know, Tycros were there. Enfields were first on the youth team there back in those days. Remember the first Thanksgiving baskets? Dan Shenander got a word from the Lord. Yes, the Lord still does speak in our hearts. He wanted us to get into the city. We didn't know anything about the city. We're urban folk. We're suburban folk. And he wanted us to bless and have a heart for the cities. He said, and we were so small. And yet, he took these, we put together these turkey baskets with all kinds of fixings. I think there was 13 or 14 of them. And Dan said the Lord told me He wanted us to take them where He directed us to take them, in the city. Right. That was exciting. So we had like 3 or 4 different carloads. We had some turkey baskets in each one, and each car was to go into the inner city and pray and ask God, where do these go? The amazing thing and the miracle that started what you see today, and I don't know how many meals went out this year? 165 baskets went out this year, all these years. Been going back into the city. That first year, God gave specific words to the young people in the car. One would say, it's a yellow house on a corner, and another one would say, God gives me these numbers, 3, 5, 6, 8. Sure enough, there would be a yellow house on the corner, 3, 5, 6, 8, We go and knock on the door, cold call, with a meal to find, I remember in that case, a weeping young lady without food for that Thanksgiving. That happened over and over. Do not tell me God does not speak and lead in the hearts of people. All we have to do is ask. All we have to do is follow. All we have to do is be willing. And he led, and since then, thousands of meals have gone out. I remember the early days of home groups and worshiping with you and meeting from home to home. Days of in the Word, but when the Word back then, we had this concept of a word that's not used too often these days, covenant, which means developing life relationships with each other, that we would walk this Christ-led life together for our lifetime. And after now looking back, I say that's hard. It's hard to attain. But for those of us who have walked it, has it been good? And I stand here with many of you this morning and say that has the wonderful blessing of God. And now many of you have joined into that same covenant heart. It's not a super spiritual term. It just means we walk this belief we have out together. We'll stick with one another. We'll stand by one another. We'll stand with each other in the times when we're crazy and out of whack and we need help, and the times when we're strong and can contribute to others. I remember going into Boundary Waters, switch gears here, for years and years. How many of you went to Boundary Waters with Kelly and I? Oh, we take those trips in there. Oh, it was a death trap. I mean, to follow us to those places. But Alyssa, remember, was there, Heidi, some of the others. And Kelly and I wanted to give the whole experience of the outdoors things, and we were afraid that we wouldn't run into bears. So Kelly and I decided that we would actually take a tape recorder pre-recorded with wild animals and play them just outside the tents of the young people at night. And we had bear sounds and wolves. Sorry. And eventually we got a little braver and got a few wild elephants. Kids would come running out of their tents, or in some cases refusing to come out of their tents. It was a great time, really spiritual. Years of missions. Medical missions, what we started out with in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Panama, Colombia, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Zambia, Zaire, Tanzania, and other places that I've forgotten. Over years, we asked the Lord, Lord, you've made us, you've blessed us, and we have so much. What do we have that we can share with others? That was the question. And we had physicians in the congregation with a heart to go serve. And we had connections for medical supplies and goods, and that's how we started out. We just looked at what the Lord had given us to share. And our desire was to do this, was to not go with a little group that just would get blessed by a little Christian tourism. We wanted to go and we wanted to ask the local churches where we went, how can we serve you? How can we serve you? How can we serve your church? Can we come? Would your community benefit from a medical mission? And then would your church come in and lead us? And since those early days with Mark McIntyre and Exie Bravo and Chris Christensen and Brad Feltus and many, many, many others over the years, many of you, the excitement of the adventure of holding flashlights while Brad did surgery. How cool is that? And some of the younger people couldn't stay with our dentist because most of the things in the jungle were tooth extractions, and they're not without mess. And so I remember those things. I remember going to a military camp in Costa Rica. The name of it was Murciélago. It translated as the bat. was built by the CIA to keep an eye on Nicaragua, which was just across the border. But then the Costa Rican military police had taken it over, and it was a training grounds for them. They didn't want us to come, but we had favor in the eyes of the government because we'd already been doing work in the country for a few years. And so the administrators of the government said, hey, we've got this place for you to stay. Go stay at this military installation we have, Murciélago. They didn't wait. People in black uniforms and automatic weapons met us, and we were drilled for like a half hour on the rules of what we were not to do. Within 5 days or so, because we'd go out into different villages doing medical missions, they loved us. We got to minister and do medical stuff for all the military people there. You know, by the seventh day, they had invited us out into the shooting range to shoot their automatic weapons. Now that is relationship. I remember the years of being interrogated in Cuba. You know, I would bring in massive amounts of antibiotics to the underground church there and meet with the doctors who were leaders of the underground church. Remember the times in Tanzania where Pastor Bundi, a Tanzanian Lutheran pastor in his 70s, we teamed up with him and we asked, how can we serve? And he had retired. And we ended up going out into the bush amongst the Maasai people in the villages that he would lead us to, that he had relationship with. And at the end of that time, one of the most humbling times of my life was when we sat at the end of one of these things, and he shared in the group. He said, 10 years ago, the Lord had given me a dream that a tall man was going to come from the west and enable him to go back and visit the villages that he had ministered into as a young man. And he was referring, it's like that the Lord had prepared in advance all those years for us to come. And certainly we went back to those Maasai villages that he had worked in and ministered into. And it was in one of those villages where the highest honor was to be honored with a goat, living or dead. And this particular one was living, because we got several goats by the end of this trip that we just kept in the back of the truck. The goat was brought, but then there was this incredible singing and dancing, and the wives, 7, of the chief would dance and sing, and the others would sing around, and the wives would move forward and then move back and move forward. And I realized that I was next to Pastor Bundi, and it was just me, and it was more me that was the focus. I was supposed to be I guess I was recognized as the leader of this group. And he'd be back and forth, back and forth. So I had to whisper to Pastor Bundi. I said, what's going on here? And he looks at me calmly and he says, you must choose one. Thinking this isn't going to go over well with Kelly. I thought, this is just awful. And then he looks up to me and he smiles. He says, just a ceremony now. Can you have adventure like that in the mountains? I tell you, being a forest ranger, I tell you, so we, the missions, on and on and on. We could go on and on. The years of Jubilee, 8 years of Jubilee. Now, for those of you who don't know it, it's when another person in the congregation got a word that we were supposed to give freely of that which we had. We were so blessed. And so we spent 8 years, I believe it was, this whole church and gathered together, ministering the community with a giant giveaway. And we would work months and sometimes all year long. The crowd search, John and Sandy and others of you worked so hard, tirelessly, all year long, do these massive giveaways of clothing, of goods, of food, of skills and photography. And we would have thousands and thousands of people. It was too big for our parking lot. And believe me, there's that's too big for our parking lot. By the end, we were partnering with 17 churches around this area. We were partnering with the blessing and the full help of the government of Apple Valley, and we were ministering to thousands of people would come and line up down the streets for hours ahead of time to come and freely receive of music and of all these blessings, and everything was free. Everything was free. And God was glorified in all those things. And then not so much the congregation, but I just last week retired as a chaplain of the Apple Valley Police Department for over 20 years. The times of knocking on people's doors late at night, and the police have a bad rap sometimes. They have a hard job. We'd go with the officers to tell them their son or daughter wasn't coming home because they'd just been killed in a drunk driving incident. We're ministering to them and their families. And we all have areas where we are out of whack. Every organization. We need to examine our own hearts in all things. I tell you, what a privilege to serve in that way for so many years. And the chief of police, I handed him my badge. I got this cool badge. That was worth it right there. And he says, after 20 years, he says, you keep this. So it's cool. And then he gave me a card with that, and he put his personal cell phone number on it. And he said, call anytime. I said, I wonder if that's a get-out-of-jail-free card. I don't know. I hope I don't have to try it. Remember all the years of sermons? Thank you for bearing with me all these years of sermons. Thank you for, when I was young, I was horrible at preaching. It really was. I was. I look back at some of those things and I go, how did you stay? And yet you bore with me. And one of the things about this congregation is we're always raising up new pastors who are always growing in their gifts and abilities. And it's one of the beautiful things about being part of one another is we give each other room, not just as pastors, but in all the ways that you serve, to serve. It's so good, but you remember whether I preached from inside a box or dressed as a tree or with a beam in my head or... Thank you. You know where that came from? It came because in looking at Jesus, the way he talked to people, he used everything around him. He was my inspiration. Jesus, he was hilarious. You know, he would see the guys fishing out there who got nothing, and he would say, just try the other side of the boat. He was hilarious. And this is, and so I would ask, all these years I've said, Lord, could you give me a little bit of your creativity? You are the creator. You're the creative one. Give me And then there are times I'd be sitting in my office with nothing, and all of a sudden I would start laughing out loud, and I knew that the Lord had answered because I'd get these stupid ideas. Hey, dress up as a fruit tree and hand out rotten fruit. I go, wow, what a great idea. You should preach from inside a box sometime, up on the, with a camera in there. Wow. That wasn't from me. I was asking the Lord for creativity. Weddings. If I've done your wedding or your children's wedding or your parents' wedding, raise your hand. Wow. King's Riders, you're here. They did their wedding. It was outdoors, which is really a gamble in Minnesota. And sure enough, this beautiful thing, Nissan's, man, you must have paid a fortune for that thing. I mean, there were tents, and I mean, this was nice. This was a big deal. So, okay, everybody's the wedding. Of course, the weather turns bad. There's just a window of time to do the ceremony, and then we are all whisked to the tents, and sure enough, the skies turn deep yellow. You love that, oh, it's pretty, very pretty, except for the tornado sirens. And then getting calls, from the people. And some people say, you have to evacuate, you have to get out of here. Wedding's over. Crying bride. Nancy, I remember sitting with you and you thinking how terrible this was. I said, Nancy, no one's had a wedding like this before. This will be remembered for years and generations to come. Who would ever forget the funerals that we've done here and been able to, we do funerals well because not only do we honor memories, but we have hope for eternity. Had the blessing to bury parents and children, brothers and sisters, wives and husbands. Had a chance to sit by bedsides as people drew their last breaths on the earth. Had an opportunities to ask when people are taking their last breaths, are you ready yet to trust your eternity with Jesus Christ? And hear the words, yes, pray with me. And to pray with people and see them come into the presence of Jesus at that moment, and then in moments into his presence in eternity. The baptisms, the dedications. I can't tell you all the children's names that I've forgotten during dedications. And it wouldn't be nearly so embarrassing if some of them weren't my own grandchildren. The births, being not in the room except for my family, but nearby. I remember and Kaisa to pray for you in that incubator and see you now. And we worried for your life then. Mackenzie, you gave your mom such a hard time. You were a difficult child at birth. I mean, you're perfect now, of course. Yeah, but Kaisa, but it was worth it because your mom was in a unit and she actually stayed with Prince's wife in the same unit during the time. So how cool is that? One of the best things of all these years that I've done. Do you mind that I'm going overtime today? I hope, please give me a license. One of the best things was exchanging body parts with Chuck. Chuck, I know you're watching. Love you. I gave him my kidney, and he's been feeding me ribs ever since. It was kind of a body part exchange program. It has worked so well. I had 2 kidneys, and I asked my wife, I was only using one. So, why not give one? And Chuck is here, and he was on dialysis, coming in on a walker every week. He said, Lord, what do I have that I can share? What a privilege. Now, that's been over 10 years ago, and he's used up my kidney through your fast living, Chuck. And he's ready for another one. So just ask the Lord about that one. There are people out there who can be blessed in some very, very tangible ways. But all the giving and the generosity of years, to be the person who's the middleman. I can't tell you how many tens of thousands of dollars have gone through my hands because somebody secretly wanted to give to a need of somebody else in this congregation. And it's happened over and over again. Cars and houses and fixing of houses and paying. Do you remember when we just took an offering? There was a young woman, a single mom, and she was deeply in debt. And we said, we'll just take an offering. And we paid off her entire debt in one offering. Do you remember that? How many of you remember that here? Awesome. Just to do the generosity of this kind. The internships over the years. Oh my goodness. Jamie, you started clapping, but you were very difficult. You were one of the few interns where I felt like we needed to pat people down for weapons before they entered the room. Yeah, we had those fun discussions, you know. I say that tongue-in-cheek. You were awesome. Even closer, one of the Allen girls, Heather, I asked her at one of the theology classes just recently, I said, okay, so you've given a year of your life to study and to press into Christ. Okay, so this class that I'm teaching you now, what's your level of anticipation for it? I said, give me a 1 out of 10. And she goes, 3. You'll never live that down, Heather. What was it at the end? A 10. Right answer. The fellowship of that table and now that internship that has blossomed into so many, just rooting into the Word and even going overseas now that's far beyond anything that I could have ever dreamed or done. The prayer groups, the men of coffee grounds over the years who I sit with, and we all have one thing in common. We ache and we pray and we have the hearts of our children and our children's children. And for us as men to share this fellowship together under John's leadership has been one of the greatest privileges in these years. The time when we sent Jim full-time into the city, this was 20 years ago, before reconciliation was the thing. We freed him up as a congregation this year. So Jim, lead us and tell us how to do reconciliation in the body of Christ. And we freed him up a year. Some of you don't even remember that. To go in and to build relationships and friendships and to sow roots of forgiveness and asking forgiveness and help. And we came into such a richness and depth of relationships through that lasted this day. You remember Alex Alexander, United Deliverance Temple? How rich when we came into the relationship with Alex and United Deliverance Temple and how he's with the Lord. His last sermon was from this podium. His last one before he went to be with the Lord, and how we love him, and how the richness of our African-American brothers in the church has blessed us. And now his son Byron, for those of you who don't know, they use our facility in the afternoon for their congregation to meet here. Many other congregations have met here, and we have never charged a dime to use our facility. It is all for the sake of Christ. And then there's the worship, and I've skipped over so many things. But worship. Andy, Megan, Mackenzie, Emily, Jeff, my wife Kelly, who led for a while, Dan Childs, Nikki, who couldn't make it through one worship service without weeping. And it was just awful because I couldn't help but weep with her and love it because of the tender heart towards God. I was raised in an unemotional kind of church where that was frowned upon to show too much emotion. I find what a privilege it is that we can weep together and we laugh together. Touches our souls, doesn't it? That we can do both of those things. Weeping together involves trust. It involves vulnerability before one another and before God. And of course, laughing together is just amazing. Some godly people in here, much more godly than I, sometimes scripture rolls around your head. For me, it's old lyrics to songs. The Beatles in 1969 put out an album by the name of Abbey Road. And I've had this thing going in my head all this last week preparing to talk to you, and it's called The End. And these are the words, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. And that's I don't know why. You know, some people just think of Scripture. I think of Beatles tunes. You know, there's a biblical truth to that, of course, that we reap what we sow. But I want you to know something. I know in my heart and in all these years of experience that the love and the mercy and the grace that has flowed from God to me and my family and to this congregation far surpasses anything we have ever offered. And I want to read to you from Psalms 103. The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in mercy. He will not always strive with us, nor will he keep his anger forever. He has not dealt with us according to our sins, nor punished us according to our iniquities. For as the heavens are high above the earth, so great is his mercy toward those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far he has removed our transgressions from us. As a father pities his children, the Lord pities those who fear him. For he knows our frame. He remembers that we are but dust. I am so encouraged that he knows that I am dust, and yet loves us. As for man, his days are like grass, as a flower of the field, so he flourishes, and the wind passes over it and is gone, and his place remembers no more. I won't be remembered in a couple of generations. Do you remember your great-grandparents? We'll be forgotten. But, and in Scripture it's always the buts, but the mercy of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear him, and on his righteousness to children's children, to such as keep his covenant, to those who remembered his commandments to do them. God's mercy is what it's all about. Eternity is everything. All of the wonders and the beauty of this world and everything that we can contribute to it and do it eventually will pass away, and the only things that will last are the things that we sow into eternally. And that we have forever, and that is what I hold on to, and that is what our lives should be about, is the eternal things. Our home is eternity. When I was a young man, 25 or 26 years old, I'm going to ask my wife to come up here. Before I was a pastor, before I lived here, before I'd come here, I sought God with my heart and to give him my life. Never dreaming it would be here or as a pastor. Thought it would be in the field of, you can take that off now up here, you were allowed. Never thought I'd do the things that we're doing. Keep it together for me. I sat down at a piano, which I didn't know how to play, because it was the only place I escaped from the school I was going to, and wrote a song. Actually, it's from Psalm 73. It's my version of it. It was my heart's cry as a man of 25 or 26, before I was here, before I was a pastor. And it was my heart's cry then. And I want to do something selfish before you, my friends, and my family. And I want to, the song I came in with, I want to go out with. And my wife's going to help me, as she should. She has been the brunt of so many sermon illustrations. You know it. And the one thing I was always sure of in a sermon, as soon as I said the word Kelly, you all woke up. I want you to know this. If any of you like me, it's because of her. She has kept me accountable. She encourages me. She's been my rock. And I'm so grateful to have had her at my side. And sometimes I'm at her side, many times. And I think it's just fitting that she's with me and we do this together before God. If it becomes your prayer and you catch on, and if it's of your heart, you can join in with us. Always in your presence, Lord, knowing small voice, until in glory your face I see. You alone are my salvation, you are life to me. 'Cause who have I in heaven but you? Nothing more on this earth I desire. My flesh and heart may fail, my riches rust and fade, but you are my Lord, you are my God, the strength of my heart. Holy Lord God Almighty, I will serve you and adore you all my days. Let me be your servant. Take my life and use it. Let it bring you praise. Let my eyes see more than this world, to see the glory of an age to come. Give me the courage to tell my brothers of Jesus, God's own Son. Give me a heart that weeps for the lost, for those without you whose hope is gone. Help me remember the end of us sinners, to keep my praying strong. 'Cause who have we in heaven but you? Nothing more on this earth we desire. Our flesh and heart may fail, our riches rust and fade. You are our Lord, you are our God, the strength of our hearts. Who have we in heaven but you? Nothing more on this earth we desire. Our flesh and hearts may fail, our riches rust and fade. You are our Lord, you are our God, strength of our hearts. You are our Lord, you are our God, strength of our hearts. Thank you. Thank you, family, friends.
Ty and Kelly, come on back in. Oh, they try to slip away like that. No. No. We love you guys. We're going to pray for you, for your journey, that you come back to us. That 39 years, let's just round up to 40. Do you want to? So the nursery made you guys. We love you, Ty and Kelly. We love you, Ty and Kelly. So let's gather up. Come on in here, Ty and Kelly. You are our mentors in the internship. You are our parents in the faith. And you are our friends. Thank you, God. We all thank God for you. We're family. If you extend your hands, let's pray over them on their journey. Extend your hands at home. Let's pray over them. Lord, thank you for this couple. Thank you for this gift. Thank you that you shine through them the gospel, that you shine through them truth, security, hope, love, family. Lord, thank you for them. Will you bless them, protect them, keep them, hold them, saturate those dry bones with your presence, Lord, and bring them home to us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen and amen. Amen.